Hi, welcome to my video on the inverse of a cubic and a cubic root functions, part 1. Number 1, the f of x equals x minus 1 all cubed. We want to find the f of negative 1. So this means this is a cubic, and a cubic is a sideways s. This cubic has, when x is 1, y is 0. Because the cubic, x belongs to the reals. You can use any value of x in this equation. And as a result, y belongs to the reals. So let's find the inverse of the f of x. Let the f of x equal a y. Interchange y to an x and an x to a y. We got a cube root, so we'll do the cube root of x on each. We do the cube root of x, we do the cube root of each side. And y minus 1 cubed, the cube root is y minus 1. So y is equal to the cube root of x. And there's a minus 1, so we'll make it a plus 1. So the inverse is x to the negative 1 of x is the cube root of x plus 1. So graph the f of x and f to the negative 1, which is the inverse on this axis. So f of x is equal to x minus 1 cubed. This is f of x. The f of negative 1 of x is the inverse, which is the cube root of x plus 1. So I'm writing the two equations here. So I'm going to fill in the table of values. So let's start with this is a cubic with sideways s. So let's start with 0. Let's start with if we put a 1 in. So if we put a 1 in, a 1 minus 1 is 0, 0 cubed is 0. So let's put a 2 in. 2 minus 1 is 1, 1 cubed is 1. Let's put a 3 in. 3 minus 1 is 2, 2 cubed is 8. And let's put a 0 in. 0 minus 1 is negative 1. Negative 1 cubed is negative 1. Put a negative 1 in. Negative 1 minus 1 is negative 2. Negative 2 cubed is negative 8. Notice it passes through 1, 0, but notice it's 1, negative 1. Notice that these are the opposites of each other. That means that the cubic is it's reflected in the origin 0, 0. Now let's do its inverse, x and y. So if we do its inverse, the x's become the y's, 3, 2, 1, 0, negative 1. The y's become the x's, 8, 1, 0, negative 1, negative 8. So to do that, let's check. Let's take these values and sub them in here to see what they give you the y's. 8, put an 8 here. Cube root of 8 is 2. 2 plus 1 is 3. Put a 1 in. Cube root of 1 is 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. So these tables are okay. So now let's graph. Cubic is a sideways s. So when x is 3, y is 8. So let's put it right there. And x is 2, y is 1. Right there. When x is 1, y is 0. X is 1, y is 0. When x is 0, y is negative 1. 0 gives you negative 1. X is 0, negative 1. And when x is 1, y is negative 8. When x is negative 1, y is negative 8. I'll put it right on the 8 there. So as we said, it's a sideways s, so it comes down. As you can see, it's coming down. And it bends into here. And it goes over. And so it's a, there it is, sideways s. This is the f of x. Now I'm going to, as before, I'm going to do my inverse in red. So f to the negative 1 is the reverse. When x is 8, y is 3. When x is 8, y is 3. Right here. When x is 1, y is 2. When x is 1, y is 2. When x is 0, y is 1. X is 0, y is 1. When x is negative 1, y is 0. Negative 1, 0. When x is negative 8, y is negative 1. X is negative 8, y is negative 1. So the reflection is, it comes in and it's bending, and there it is there. So f to the negative 1 is its inverse. And again, just a note, it's reflected in the line. Again, y equals x. So the two of them intersect right here. So this is the line, y equals x. X is y, y is x. Okay, let's look at the domain. The domain of the f of x is this one. The domain is reals, and the range is reals. So you have all the x's in your graph, because as x goes to the right, this keeps going up. As x goes to the left, this keeps going down. And so we have, in its inverse, notice this, as x goes to the right, or x goes to the left, we have all of them. So the inverse, the y's are the x's, and the x's are the y's. But because they're all the same, we can't see the difference. The inverse of a cubic function, a cubic function is a cube root. So the inverse of a cube is a cube root. And now let's do the composite of that. So we have to do the inside first. So we sub in f to the negative 1. So f to the negative 1 is the cube root of x plus 1. So f to the negative 1 is, you can take it here or don't make any difference. Right here, same one. So f to the negative 1 is the cube root of x plus 1. So f to the negative 1. So that's similar to substituting in a constant. So now that's done. So now we have to take this expression and sub into the f. So we have to sub the cube root of x plus 1 in right here, right there. So that's a bracket. The cube root of x plus 1 minus 1 cubed. So again, right here, we have to put cube root of x plus 1. Done. Now we PEMDAS, we work the inside first. So that's the cube root of x. That cancels. Cubed. And the cube root of x cubed is x. And another way that we're going to just explain that a little bit more. The cube root, if you make that a 1, so the cube root of x is the same as x to the 1/3. The little dot is not there. Pretend it's not there. So x, cube root of x to the 1 is the cube root of 1/3. And because we have a power, we multiply, so 1/3 times 3 is 1. So just another way to explain it. So the cube root of x cubed is an x. Okay, let's have a go at another one. Let's do the reverse. Now we have a cube root. Let's see what is the inverse of a cube root. It should be a cube. Let's see. And because this is a cube root, again, this starts at, think about it, when x is 1, y is 0. So, and domain is reals, and the range is reals. So we want to find the f to the negative 1. So the f of x is a y. Done. We change the y to an x and an x to a y. So we'll do the negative first. So we'll do multiply each side by negative 1. So negative x is a positive. Cube root of y minus 1. So negative times the positive is negative. Negative times negative is positive. So we have to do the cube. So we got negative x cubed. and we cube this side, we get a y minus 1. So negative x cubed is the same as the negative of x cubed. Simplify that. And so y equals the negative of x cubed plus 1. So f to the negative 1 of x is the negative of x cubed plus 1. Negative x cubed plus 1. Okay, now we want to graph. We have the inverse found. Again, this is a cube root. The inverse is a cube. Perfect. And the f of x, just want to write the equation. The f of x, I got backwards there in my bracket, is the negative of cube root of x minus 1. F to the negative 1 is negative x cubed plus 1. Make that an x and a y. So let's do a table of values on the cube root. So let's start with a 1. If we put a 1 here, we get a 0. The cube root of 0 is 0, negative. And we put a 2 in. 2 minus 1 is 1. The cube root of 1 is 1. The negative. We put, now I want to get a cube root, a nice cube root. So I did the cube root of 1, so I need a 2. So I'm going to put a 9 in. 9 minus 1 is 8. The cube root of 8 is 2, negative 2. So a 9 gives me a perfect cube. Now I'm going to put in a 0. A 0 minus 1 is negative 1. The cube root of negative 1 is negative 1. The negative of a negative 1 is 1. And I need a perfect cube that's negative, so we pick a negative 7. That gives me a negative 8, because I need a 1, an 8, negative 1, negative 8 is 0. So negative 7 minus 1 is negative 8. Cube root of negative 8 is negative 2. The negative of a negative 2 is 2. And you notice, negative 1, 1, negative 2, 2, they're switched. So the x's become the y's, and the y's become the x's because they're reflected in the line y equals x. And just to make sure, let's see if we're right. Assume these are right. So let's check. Take the negative 2 and plug in. Negative 2 cubed is negative 8. The negative of negative 8 is 8. 8 plus 1 is 9. Try one more. Try negative 1. Negative 1 all cubed is negative 1. The negative of a negative 1 is 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. Looks good. So let's graph. Notice we got 9 gives me a negative 2. A 9, which is right here, gives me a negative 2. A 2 gives me a negative 1. 2 gives me a negative 1. 1 gives me a 0. 1 gives me a 0. 0 gives me a 1. X is 0, y is 1. And when x is a negative 7, y is 2. So you can see it comes in, it's coming in, and it's bending. So there's the cube root graph. Notice it's reflected, but the cube root is the reflection of a cubic. So if this is a cubic, now we got a cube. So we got to graph this one. So it's negative 2. I'm going to use the inverse in red. So x is negative 2. When x is negative 2, y is 9. X is negative 2, y is 9, right up here. Notice that this graph, notice the x cubed would start here. X, if you had y equals x cubed, you would come down this way. But because this is a negative, then you come, it's reflected. So it's turned over. Instead of coming down like that, it's going to go up like this. Negative 1 is a 2. 0 is a 1. If x is 1, y is 0. Right there. And when x is 2, y is negative 7. Right there. So it comes down, down, and it hits here and bends. So this is f to the negative 1 of x. And again, the reflections of each other. Excuse me, I just want to draw this line, make sure. This is the line that y equals x. So both of them are intersecting right there. Y equals x. And this line, this point of intersection is at 1, 1, but the graphs don't intersect at 1, 1, because 1, 1 is not in here. So the two graphs intersect somewhere between, right here, in between 0 and 1, and in between when y is 0 and 1. Now, its inverse is the real numbers. Oops, sorry. F of x is real, y is reals. And when you switch these, it makes no difference. You get the same thing. Because they're all reals, you can't notice the switching. Reals and reals. But explain, this is the f of x. Notice as x goes to infinity, y is going down. As x is going to negative infinity, y is going to infinity. So all the x's are in this graph and all the y's are in this graph. And in the inverse, which is right here, as x goes to the right, y goes down. As x goes to the left, y goes up. So all the x's are going to be in this graph and all the y's. D, the inverse of a cube root function is a cubic function. This is a cube root, ends up with a cube. And we have to do the inverse. So f to the negative 1. And I have to put the f of x. So the f of x is right here. So that's the negative of the cube root of x minus 1. Now we have to sub that in, the f to the negative 1. So I have to sub that expression right here. There it is, in right here. So I have a negative, and x's are being a cube, so I'll do this. And it's being cubed, so there's the negative right there. I'm subbing in the place of x, which is here. There's the cube right here, and that's a plus 1. So I have to cube this first because I got to do the power. I can't simplify this, but I got to do the exponent. So negative cube, negative times the negative is a negative. The cube root of x minus 1 cubed is x minus 1. Okay, there's this bracket, there it is. So I cubed it, plus 1. So notice I have the negative of this being cubed. So that's like a negative x minus 1 times negative, like that. Just writing it out just to make sure. So a negative times a negative times a negative is a negative, and x minus 1 times x minus 1 times x minus 1 is x minus 1 cubed, so the cube root of that is x minus 1. So let's go over here. Notice I got a negative, so I could do, let's do the inside first. The negative of x is negative x. The negative of a negative 1 is a plus 1. So I did this first. Now I'm going to do the negative of that. I could have done a negative of a negative and made that a positive and just picked up the x. So the negative of the negative times a negative is a positive. Negative times a positive is a negative. So I did the negative of negative x plus 1. There it is, x minus 1. And they cancel, and I get an x. Because they're the inverse of each other, then the composite of the inverse is always an x. So just inverse of cubics. Just wanted to do a video on those. to complete what we're doing. If you like my video, click on the like button. If you're not a subscriber and you wish to subscribe, hit the subscribe button. Visit my math website, www.mathfullyexplained.com, to find more information about me, my videos, and the content. That's the content on my YouTube channel called Math Fully Explained. Just one word. Thank you for viewing my video. Hope the video was of some help to you. Bye-bye.